Mick and I chose a critical incident that happened to us in our lives.
We both chose this topic because it concerned both of us, and we had that in common.
And this critical incident was us moving to the Northwest from California.
So when we chose this topic, we decided to bring out 3 main points, and those are
the decision, actually moving from California up here.
And second was the move, the actual physical move.
And the third was the positive and negative effects on moving up here to the Northwest.
So, the decision came. Everybody always asks me, why would you leave California to come to Washington? And when I answer that, I have to think back hard on what that decision was. And it wasn't a very easy decision. It was in the mid-'80s, and I was about 28 years old. And I was married, and I had 2 young kids and a stepkid. My 2 young kids were 1 and 2. And things were kind of rough in LA at that time. The housing market was down. Unemployment was up. Economically, it was kind of dismal. And there was other things involved. There was violence, gang-related violence. A lot of the riots were going on at that time. So my father lived in Washington. He lived in Tacoma. And while he was down visiting, we were having dinner one night, and he proposed the idea. He was a young guy with a very young family starting out. What would you think about coming to live where I live in Washington? And we discussed it, and I discussed it with all our family, and we thought, well, maybe a good start would, or new start would do us good. And there's something about being American that the migration across this great country has gone on and on over the years, and many people have done it. Many families have got uprooted and left. I think it probably started before when we first came here from England, and all the families that came thereafter to Ellis Island. And on and on. There was always this idea of prospect that things might be better somewhere else, with the gold rush, the Dust Bowl era. So I had that in mind, and I thought, well, we just talked about it with my wife and my other family members, and we thought, well, we'll give it a try. If not, we can always come back. But things seemed more positive up here. It seems like there was going to be employment, a lot better, cheaper housing, a way for a young guy to buy a house and raise his kids, and then maybe a better environment, more outdoorsy kind of a place in the woods and everything. Where I lived in LA was kind of on a really busy street, and it was unsafe to let my kids out of the door. So those factors, they were, pluses and minuses, and we weighed them out, and I thought about it, and I came to that decision.
So the decision was very hard for us because we knew that we would leave a lot of family behind. My grandpa, one of my dad's brothers, and his 9 sisters. My parents had barely got married and had my brother and I. My mom was jobless, and my dad had barely lost his job. So my mom had 4 brothers here in Washington, and they were telling us that over here seems like a better future for us because there's more jobs, the houses are cheaper, like Mick said, and so that if both of them would apply for jobs, they were able to get it. So basically the decision was made after time. It wasn't the next day they didn't say, oh, let's go to Washington. It had to take time to think about it. So the decision was made to move over here.
Then came the actual second point. It was the actual move. And that was a big thing. I was, 28 years old, but looking back on it now, I had all my worldly possessions would probably fit in a broom closet at that time. We got rid of everything. We had a garage sale, and I didn't really have that much. I didn't have a bunch of junk and stuff and those kinds of things. My father, luckily, was a cross-country semi-driver who worked for a furniture company. So here he was, the answer. Mr. Semi backed up to our apartment, and we loaded all the stuff and fit into an overseas container. And that was that. That was simple. Then it was the actual time to leave and transport. We decided to drive up here. We all crawled into a 4-door Nissan Maxima that was not in the best shape, to say the least. a little about, I think I had less than $1,000 at that time. And, you know, we treated it with a positive attitude. You know, it was more like road trip. All right, and the kids were all excited. Let's get in there. And I had 2 kids. We were 1 and 2, so we had 2 car seats. And then the 7, God bless her, took care of them, sat in between them all the way up. But we decided to make it a little bit fun, so we thought, well, you know, we'll stop in a motel and we'll try to find one with a pool for the kids and, you know, make it a fun trip. And it was. First day we got up to Northern California and we stopped at a hotel with I think it had a McDonald's across the street and there was a pool there and the kids were happy. Hey, if the kids are happy, you're happy, right? So everything was fine. We took off the next morning. Thought maybe we might even get up there the next day by evening. Well, the 4-door Nissan Maxima thought otherwise, and we were pulling the Siskiyou Mountains in southern Oregon. It decided that was enough, and it broke down. So, faced with that dilemma, Dad came through once again. I got on the phone. He was up here already, Tacoma. He went to the U-Haul thing, bought a car trailer, hooked it up, drove down to Southern California, picked us up, and brought us up here. You know, we arrived late that night, the next night, so it was actually a 2-day trip. But we did have a safe passage, and we arrived safely, and thank God.
So the big move for us, it was really hard because we had to leave a lot of family behind, like I said. We were living at my aunt's house with her family, and my dad's brother-in-law, my uncle, lended my parents $500, only $500, that's all we had, to move up here. We drove in my dad's Chevy, and it was 4 of us. We just took our clothes with us because that's all we had. We didn't have any supplies, we didn't have any dressers or any of that to bring with us. We made only a few stops. We didn't stay at any hotels or any of that. My parents always like to just drive straight. They don't like to stay at hotels. They always just switch off drivers. And we finally got to Washington, and we were staying with 2 of my uncles and their families in an apartment on 56 and Orchard. And basically the move, you know, it happened really quick. It only took us, I would say, a day. So that's basically it.
So having made those first 2 points, then it was life here in Washington, and it was meager at first, but about 30 days in, I was able to secure a job, and I lived with my father in his basement for about 2 months, and was able to get an apartment. And I looked at an ad in the paper, and I saw this ad that says apartment manager, free rent, and I thought, oh, perfect. I jumped on it, called, and they said, yeah, come on over. And it was a brand new apartment building, and I just couldn't believe it. It was right in the middle of the woods. I thought, you know, here coming from LA. Well, later I found out after going back to work that I had moved into one of the worst areas of neighborhoods of Tacoma. It was on 56 and Portland Avenue in a place called Swan Creek. You know, and it had a trail behind my house, you know, and I was taking the kids down on this trail, and then I looked down and I saw a couple of syringe needles, and it's like nature. You know, I couldn't figure out what was going on. But, you know, my friends at work finally told me, he goes, you live in the ghetto. I go, no. You know, this is paradise. I live in paradise. But that's how it was. Sometimes it takes a transplant from seeing one way from another. When I was preparing the speech, I talked to Tracy Rose Panisi, and it seems like everybody's got a story about migrating at one time in their life or taking that critical move. And she told me the exact same thing, that she had been at a certain crossroads in her life where she had to pack up and leave. And it was funny, she had the same exact car I did. But, you know, once we got here, it was the right decision. You know, when I look back on it, you know, Liz and I share that, and, you know, it's funny because we share that, but we come in different aspects of it. I was an older person when I made that decision. She didn't have much choice in it. She was about 2 years old. But our families were both affected by that, and I think for the better.